My Last Wish by Swiggyswoo. There was once a girl whom I loved dearly. It was a night of solitude. I had been on my laptop mindlessly browsing the web until I received a notification on Facebook. Vita Rose requests to be your friend. I accepted without a thought, believing she must have found me through a mutual friend suggestion. Throughout the night, I continued my browsing until the friend requester spontaneously messaged me with the simple yet pleasant, "Hi." Despite the mysterious and sudden messaging, I replied back out of the goodwill to a mere, "Hello." From that point, we began speaking in depth about one another, our hobbies, our lives, a few short stories of our past. It was a very pleasant conversation. We've learned that we both live on the West Coast, I being from California and herself being from Washington. As it grew late, I bid my farewells, and she bid hers. Days later, as I returned home from my evening shift, I began my usual ritual of checking my social media messages. As soon as I opened the Facebook tab, Vita messaged me instantly with a greeting and a smile. But just the night before, we spoke more, and I discovered how much we have in common. We had seemingly found that we loved the same music, same type of books, and hell, even our love of horror movies. One particular interest of hers that I did not understand was her fascination with wishes. She was greatly envious of simple things, such as mere walks in the night just to gaze up at the stars, or to people watch from afar, to conceive stories for each individual she observed. I asked her, "Why don't you do such things?" To which she sadly replied, I don't want to experience them alone." Puzzled, I asked, "No friends? No boyfriend?" She suddenly grew quiet, then appeared. Obviously a sensitive subject, so I changed the topic. The consistency of our chats rose tremendously to the point of daily messaging. Every evening after my shift, I enjoyed her company, her stories, her passions, her sweet, witty remarks. I enjoyed them greatly, despite the fact that we were so far away. My curiosity continued as her profile picture was black. She had absolutely no pictures of herself, so I finally asked, "Vita, why don't you have a picture of yourself on here?" She answered quickly, "Oh, I just don't like my face. I'm not an attractive girl, you see." My desire for her identity hungered more. What if I liked it? Maybe even falling in love with it? I replied. She sent a smile, showing a sign of delight, and thus she stayed quiet momentarily. Fearing I had offended her, I rushed to apologize, but her message came too soon. And before me on that bright screen was a beautiful pale face. Gorgeous face, to be exact. Her silky black hair hung past her shoulders. Her beautiful, beautiful eyes that held the oceans within them. My mind was scrambling for compliments on descriptive ways to say you're beautiful. She replied, adding a heart and a smile at the end. I simply said, "See? I fell in love with it." "You're just saying that," she replied, adding a heart and a smiley. "No, no, I'm not." I happily replied. Once it grew late. We said our nightly farewells and parted ways, but her face lingered upon my mind even as I slept. I dreamt of her heavenly eyes and beautiful face. I was in love. 2 months after our encounter with one another, it seemed as if we developed feelings for one another, as she flirted with me and I flirted with her. Until finally it came down to, "You want to be with me?" She asked after a night of heartwarming exchanges regarding our childhood. My heart sunk within my chest, bursting in absolute glee. Light terror, but just pure bliss. I sat there sheepishly smiling in like a fool, delaying on my reply. I'd be a fool to reject, so I'm going to have to take you up on that offer. I said in acceptance. From there, our first "I love you" was said weeks later. Our usual text conversations began to take place on the phone regularly. Her voice was soft and pleasant to the ear. It was as beautiful as her appearance. I was starting to speculate I must have been dating an angel. Although her voice beheld a sort of sadness to it, which I cannot understand. It was a feeling of pain, of loneliness, of despair. Wanted to take her sadness away. Do you remember those wishes I told you about? The ones I desired? She added on. I'd love if you'd be the one that I experienced them with. Her voice ever so gentle. I whispered with a gladly. 6 months within the relationship, we had arranged for me to visit her in Washington for 2 weeks. I called out of work using the vacation days, which I had never used before, and thus I booked a flight to Seattle. Continuously texted before I boarded the plane, each message with "I love you" and "I can't wait." The flight lingered on for what seemed to be forever, being stuck in an everlasting purgatory. I kept playing movies within my head of our first encounter. Would I kiss her? Would I hug her? Would she dislike me? So many anxieties engulfing me. I was arrived at the airport. Had I begun to feel more anxious. I took a cramped monorail to downtown Seattle. Once I arrived in the city, I called her and told her that I had arrived. She gave me the name of a coffee shop nearby that she wanted to meet me at, and thus like that, I left my bags at the hotel and began my journey. My heart pounded heavily within my chest, worsening as I appeared closer to my destination. I arrived to find myself utterly alone, staring at the moon. I felt impatience devouring me. I stood there nervously and thought, what if she's not even real? Was I a fool to believe her? Doubt consumed my mind as minutes went by, till a slight tap on my shoulder sent chills down my spine. Hi, that heavenly voice, one that I was ever so familiar with, the one which I fell in love with. I froze in shock and turned to her, her dark, silky hair that flowed down past her shoulders. Her slim face and beautiful blue eyes stood there before me in the flesh. Before I could say a word, she grasped me tightly, wrapping her arms around my waist. I smiled. I cannot stop smiling. I felt like crying. I can cross this off my wish list, she whispered. After a short and loving exchange, she took my hand and led me through the area, ushering me to a nearby park. It was void of life except for her and I. She tugged on my hand, pulling me to the center of a grassy field, plopping us down upon the ground. She held my hand so tenderly, and thus we gazed up at the glimmering night sky with billions of stars shining down upon us. I don't think they'll ever be lonely. There's so many of them, she said sweetly. I don't think we'll ever be lonely. I said to her with a smile, staring off into her eyes. She giggled. Another wish off my list. She took my hand once more, and thus we traveled to a bridge. She nudged me to sit with her on the edge, and there we watched the lights of the city flickering brilliantly through the darkness. She peered over and stared at the people from far below. What stories do you think he told? She asked curiously, smiling at me. Make them as they go, I smiled. It was a wondrous night to which I wish had no end. I had never been so happy before in my existence. Her hand, though cold, was the most pleasing thing I've ever felt. Her skin was pale, brighter than the stars, her blue eyes being that of the most gracious thing I've ever seen. I had fallen in love and I wanted to be with her forever. She held my hand and led me to her apartment. She struggled to open the door. It seems to be locked? I think the key is below the mat, she pointed out. I kneeled down, took the key from beneath it, and she smiled. Mind doing the honors? I smiled back. Of course. I slid the key into the lock and quietly I opened the door. I ambled in gradually, observing the lack of furniture. She laughed shyly. I'm still moving in, as you can see. Want to see something? She smiled with delight, pulling me to the glass door to the balcony, pushing me outside with her, and there we stood, eyes locked upon the Seattle Space Needle. Top illuminating ever so beautifully, a beacon of light ever so high. Suddenly, I felt her soft hand touch my face, and thus she whispered, "My last wish." Placing her lips upon mine, her lips were cold, but filled with life and beauty. We stood there, her face pressed against mine, my face full of blood and my eyes closed. I never wanted this night to perish. An unknown voice alerted me. "Sir, are you the owner of this condo?" I didn't know someone moved in. I turned around to the man, more so a concerned neighbor. I frowned at him in confusion. This is Vita's house. She's right here with me. His eyes widened in shock. Wait, what? She's been dead for a little over a year now. She used to live here. Poor girl jumped off the balcony. She was alone, sad, and no one knew her very well. I felt chills slither down my back as he explained this to me. My heart froze in place as a sudden realization struck me down like a bolt of lightning. She was right. My throat grew heavy as I stumbled upon my words, unable to speak. I held her key in my hand tightly, clenching it until I loosened my grip and allowed it to fall freely upon the ground beneath me. I should go. Muttering in desolation, I took one broken step at a time, feeling the weight of my misery fall upon my heart. Tears fell from my eyes as I sat in torment outside. I was such a fool, I mumbled to myself. How did I not see the signs? Her vague appearances, her cold touch, her inability to unlock the door herself. She was never here. I cried excessively, feeling my heartache transcend into physical agony. I felt my tears wiped away with a soothing, gentle touch and a kiss upon my cheek, forcing a smile upon my lips. It was then I gazed up and I saw her standing on the balcony, mouthing these words: "You are my last wish." There once was a girl who I loved dearly. Um, this story actually just it it touched me and it literally made me tearing up as I'm rereading this, and just I can understand the type of agony you would have to feel having a connection with somebody like on a different spiritual plane of existence, and just having that ripped away from you is a feeling I never wish on anybody. So this story was both beautiful and tragic and just absolutely one of my favorites. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will be posting more next week. Um in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed it, and until then, speak again.